Good afternoon. I'm Serena Collado, Director of Community Health at Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital, Somerset. Thank you for joining us today for our first live online chat in collaboration with Friends Health Connection. February is National Heart Month, so today's topic is nutrition for cardiovascular health. More than 38% of Americans have cardiovascular disease, and 2,300 die of the disease annually. That accounts for 1 out of every 3 deaths. While there are some risk factors for heart disease that we can't control, such as heredity, a majority of risk factors can be reduced through diet and lifestyle. We are pleased to be joined by Dr. Laura Galinat, Assistant Director of Somerset Family Practice at Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital, Somerset, and Associate Professor of Clinical Family Medicine at Rutgers Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. She is board certified in both family and integrative medicine and recently became one of the first 10 individuals nationwide to be certified as a culinary medicine specialist. Dr. Galinat will offer tips on what to eat to help promote heart health. The first 20 minutes of today's webinar will be a moderated discussion with Dr. Galinat, and then we will open it up to questions and answers from our audience. Please feel free to ask your questions at any point by using the Ask Your Questions user on the chat screen, and then we will answer your questions at the very end. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Galinat. Let's start.
Inviting me.
Our pleasure. Let's start by giving our audience an overview of the risk factors for cardiovascular disease and which ones are modifiable.
Well, actually, Serena, all of the risk factors are modifiable except their family history. You can't change your parents, but you can modify everything else. The American Heart Association has 2 types of risk factors. One is high risk, and those are people who may have already had a heart attack or a stroke, or they may have diabetes or end-stage renal disease and have to be on dialysis. But all of those people can improve their health by just following a few simple steps to change their lifestyle, including eating healthier. The people that are at risk are the people with that family history that you can't change, but you can become more physically active. You could stop smoking. You could improve your diet. Vitamin D is now another risk factor, so people should know what their vitamin D levels are. You need to watch your waist and weight and control your blood pressure and your cholesterol. There's a condition called metabolic syndrome, which is another risk factor, and it's all modifiable. So that's what's so great.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you for that explanation. But can you elaborate a little bit more? What exactly is the role of diet and heart disease?
Well, 2 studies that I like to talk about all the time. One is the Prevamed study. That was the first one that was done by Dr. Ramon Estralk in the Mediterranean areas, because they saw that people from the Mediterranean lived longer, were healthier. And so he had 3 groups of people. One, he gave them a liter of olive oil a week. The other one gave them nice, healthy nuts. And the third was our American Heart Association low-fat diet. And so what he saw was after 3 months that they really noticed differences. Blood pressure was down, cholesterol was down. They found that people following the Mediterranean diet had lower inflammatory markers. And what we're thinking now is that many of the chronic diseases, coronary artery disease being one, but also dementia, diabetes, these are all inflammatory diseases that can be completely modified and potentially reversed by following healthy habits like eating well, being a little bit more physically active. The other study I like to talk about is the nurses study. God bless our nurses. They work so hard in the hospital and in our offices with us, but they also want to benefit society by, for 20 years, writing down what they eat and how active they are. and they had 5 habits that would lower their risk for heart disease by almost 90%. And it was eating healthy by eating more fruits and vegetables and avoiding red meats. They would be physically active 30 minutes a day and not smoke. And they actually drank some red wine too. And they found out that, you know, red wine can help too. They only drank a half a glass a day.
Oh, wonderful. Those are great. Thank you. So let's talk fat. So everybody automatically thinks of fat as bad, but there are actually some healthier fats. So what are the good versus the bad fats, and how do they impact your cholesterol levels?
Okay, so I think of the good fats as decreasing those inflammatory markers in your body, that it's going to increase your protective cholesterol, which is the HDL, and it's going to lower your bad cholesterol, which is the LDL. And they have done studies that have shown if you increase your HDL by 1% or 1 milligram per deciliter, you're going to decreases your risk of heart disease and heart death by 6%. So there are fats that can increase your HDL and decrease your LDL, and that is extra virgin olive oil. Okay, many people may recognize this bottle. It's from Costco. You can get it in a large bottle. This is also a very good olive oil in that it's not adulterated with other sorts of oils that are not as healthy. So olive oil, that's what Ramon Estrok felt was the key ingredient of his diet. It's the polyphenols in the olive oil that have these properties to lower your inflammatory markers. An olive oil is a monounsaturated fat. The other oils that are good are your polyunsaturated fatty oils, like the omega-3 fatty acids that are in fatty fish. Or if you're a vegetarian, it's in seeds, it's in flax. The bad oils, I'm sorry people, it's red meat has the saturated fat. They are not as bad as fats like lard or margarine, that anything that's solid can cause problems. And you also have to learn how to read the labels of your things that you buy, because there's trans fats, which are very bad. And that, in fact, they are trying to eliminate trans fats in the processed foods that you buy. But you really have to learn how to read the labels, because sometimes the labels are just per serving. And if you eat the whole box, you're eating a lot of trans fats. So my suggestion, no processed foods, and just eat healthy whole foods.
Okay, so you were bringing up and discussing oil, and oil is a major source of fat. So to clarify, not all oils are the same. So which ones should we actually avoid? And are some oils beneficial for our hearts, and which ones?
I would echo what I said before, in that you want to avoid trans fats and solid fats like bacon grease or butter, the whole fat dairy type fats. And you really want to eat more olive oil, avocado, nuts. One fat that I actually suggest people to avoid is corn oil. And I know that it's an inexpensive oil. It's subsidized by our government because we grow lots of corn, but that's an omega-6 fatty acid. And we need both omega-6 and omega-3. They live in our cell membranes and they can produce those inflammatory cells, but it's a balance. And so you need both, but our diet has like 40% more omega-6s than omega-3s. And they're saying if you bring that down to 4-to-1, 1-to-1, that's much healthier for you. And what is real exciting, a week ago, Dr. Chris Gardner from Stanford just published a study that looked at, hey, if you want to lose weight, should you limit your fat or not, or limit your carbs? And you know what he found? Everybody lost weight as long as it was a healthy diet with whole foods, nothing processed. It didn't matter if you limited the fat, because the fat you were using was the olive oil or the nuts. And all patients lost weight and kept it off for a year. And so fats are good in limitation, as really most foods are, if they're whole and they're not processed, and get it from a box in the supermarket that you can't even pronounce half the ingredients on it. Just pick up the whole broccoli yourself and prepare it.
Okay. Now you had mentioned omega-3s, and we hear a lot about omega-3s when talking about heart healthy diets. So what is it? Why is it beneficial? And how can we get more of that in our diets?
Okay. As I said, there's the omega-3 and the omega-6. And what's interesting is when we eat both of them, our body processes more of the omega-6s, so that the healthy benefits from the omega-3s that you're eating really doesn't do the important tasks that it could potentially do. So I would, with omega-3s, that's in your cold water fatty fish. So that's salmon, that's haddock, that's sardines. For people that are more plant-based and really don't want to eat fish, you can get that in flaxseed, chia seeds, a lot of seeds. So there's lots of variety.
Oh, good. So my next question, our blood sugar levels are important numbers to know, especially when talking about reducing our risk factors for heart disease. Can you explain the connection between our blood sugar levels and heart disease?
Now, some of you may have heard some of these terms like glycemic load and glycemic index. Glycemic index it's based on studies that look at how simple sugars get absorbed. They get absorbed really quickly. And so that means that your blood sugar will really peak, and your insulin level is going to peak also, whether or not you have diabetes. And those two things cause inflammation in the body. So glycemic load is more, takes a look at the quality of the food item. So you can modify how fast your blood sugar peaks or how fast your insulin level goes up by eating more complex carbohydrates. So those are like whole grains, oatmeal, quinoa, bulgur. You can get whole grain bread, but you have to look at it, and you have to actually see the grains for it to be a whole grain product.
All right. So on the line of whole grains, we also want to talk about fiber. People talk fiber. So does that affect our risk for heart disease?
I think we're going to learn much more about fiber over the next couple of years. Fiber is just so healthy for all of us. It helps if you're eating, say, something that will cause you to have a high blood sugar spike. If you eat it with fiber, it won't spike as high. So it helps with that. But the new research that's going on is something that has to do with our microbiome. So we have all of these microorganisms that are living in our gut, producing healthy hormones for us, and actually affecting our gene pool and helping us live longer if we have the correct gut bacteria. And so fiber really helps that.
Oh, good. Thank you. Now, my favorite part, what are some of your favorite heart healthy recipes?
Well, before I start talking about the recipes, I just want to go over what a heart healthy plate looks like. And so some of my recipes that I brought today are illustrations. So you'll see on this side, it's all your non-starchy veggies. So again, they have high fiber, they have high phytonutrients. There's the veggies and the fruits. Okay, and then up here are your whole grains. And my sample today is my favorite breakfast choice, steel cut oats, real easy to prepare. And then down here is protein, and one of my favorite proteins are from beans, legumes. Again, high fiber, very good source of plant protein. And so what we have, and I think you have some there also, we can start with some good fish protein. We have salmon salad. That's with canned salmon. I cut up some red peppers, put some onions in there. This one has scallions. You could use, you've had this before, I think, Serena. I think you.
Yeah, no, I like this one a lot.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for our viewers because I really would love for them to be able to sample.
But you'll be able to get the recipes, right? We're going to put it on this at the end so that everybody can get it. And in fact, it's so simple to make. And you could put vinegar in this if you'd like, but I use for acid, I put lime. So there's lime. So that's one of the recipes.
Which one next?
Well, why don't we still continue to talk about protein?
Okay.
And so I made a beautiful platter for both Serena and myself with healthy hummus. Hummus is made out of chickpeas. This one, you notice it's all the colors of the rainbow. You need to eat all the colors of the rainbow because the different colors are actually different phytonutrients that are in the food. So, and this healthy hummus, we even had it in the hospital, I think in January, right? When we kicked off our healthy eating and healthy nutrition. So you just, in the blender, you put your garbanzo beans. I use a little bit of yogurt, a little bit of olive oil instead of the tahini because that's the sesame oil, which is very healthy, but oils are high in fat and calories. And then I put a little cumin in here and I put some mint and parsley. And so nice, easy snack. I'm going to try and save this for the residents because I have to give a talk to them at 1 on the microbiome.
Are you expecting me to save this for the residents?
No, that one's yours. That one's yours. And lastly, but what's the most important thing of your day is your breakfast, okay? And this is my steel-cut oats recipe. In fact, I even made it for the hospital staff when I gave my talk on how to eat healthy. Steel-cut oats, I don't know about the rest of you, I don't have time in the morning to cook steel-cut oats. It takes over an hour. So, but I also like my stuff cold. So I have steel-cut oats in here, some yogurt. I added some nuts. So again, you'll get some healthy omega 3s. The fruit I chose in here are blueberries, which berries are great. Blueberries, I think it's, if you have blueberries 2 to 4 times a week, you decrease your risk of hypertension by 10%, like diabetes by 30%, and heart disease by 40%. And it's also part of the MIND diet study, which showed that people that ate berries over a 5-year period with other healthy meals lowered their risk of cognitive decline by 50%. So those of you baby boomers out there, berries are good.
So I noticed you have cinnamon in here too.
Yeah.
Can you explain the properties of cinnamon and what that does too?
Yeah. Cinnamon, if you have cinnamon, a quarter to a half a teaspoon a day, I just sprinkled it on the top of this. Again, it can decrease your cholesterol and that bad part of the cholesterol, the LDL. It will also decrease your fasting blood sugar and your triglycerides. So what's also great about this, it's fiber. Fiber is our friend and it feeds our gut microbiome. So those are 3 very simple things that you can make. I made it last night after I got home from work, and really each item you could whip up in like 20 minutes. With the steel-cut oats, it's actually cold, so all you have to do is whip it up the night before, put it in the refrigerator, and it makes 2 servings. So very simple.
Yeah, and very delicious.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for the lunch. So at this point, I'd actually like to open it up from questions from our audience. Okay, so I think the first one, I think you touched on, but it says, are there other cooking oils that are healthy? And is the Pritkin diet heart healthy?
It depends on what you're making. Oils have different kinds of smoke points. So like for instance, extra virgin olive oil is not something that you should be sauteing with. What you may want to do, and what's actually healthier, is that you use a ceramic pan, a ceramic saute pan, and you might just use steam to saute, and then put the olive oil on the top, you know, so that it doesn't degrade into harmful elements, because that's what you don't want. The smoke point, you don't want to go over your smoke point, because what the oils degenerate in are harmful. So canola oil, grapeseed oil, those are great oils that you can use for cooking. The Pritikin diet, again, I think I talked about Chris Gardner's article earlier. I think the healthiest diet is not one that limits certain foods, because I want to throw away the term diet. It's a healthy lifestyle, okay? So that you're going to choose things that are whole foods. You're not going to go and buy something in a box that you can't understand the ingredients. Or you're not going to want to pick up food at a drive-in window. Those French fries are not healthy. If you notice, the vegetables were non-starchy vegetables, so potatoes are not part of this. And I also teach my patients to use the 80-20 rule, so that if you feel that you are depriving yourself, one day you're really going to go off and you're just going to eat everything in the refrigerator that's not healthy. And so the 80-20 rule is that 80% of the time you're trying to adopt these healthy lifestyles. But you know, there's a graduation, there's a wedding. So that 20%, enjoy. But you can also make some healthier desserts and snacks. The conference that I went to was called Healthy Kitchens, Healthy Lives, out at the Culinary Institute of America, and it was sponsored by the Harvard School of Public Health. They had 400 different things for us to try. And for desserts, they suggested combining fruit, nuts, and chocolate, because dark chocolate is also healthy. So everything in moderation. If you notice that my plate is only 9-10 inches, we supersize everything in the United States, and that's not healthy. So again, I wouldn't suggest one diet over the other. I just think you need to eating healthy grains and having some protein source. And you see, the protein's only 1/4 of the plate. 4 ounces is the size of the palm of your hand.
So lots of questions filtering in. This is great. So one of the ones that came up early on was, what do you recommend as other sources for omega-3, 6, and 9 other than flaxseed?
For omega-3s, it depends on whether you're vegetarian, vegan. If you're not a fish, if you really don't care for fish, you can always get fish oil supplements. They're not all the same. You have to read the labels again. There are many types of components in a fish oil. You want to look for the EPA and the DHA. Your DHA should be around 400 and your EPA should be around 600, which would give you about 1 gram of fish oil. There's also krill oil. There's omega-3s, a handful of nuts. That's all you need, a handful. You don't want to eat too many of them, and I really would like these packs to be smaller because a handful of nuts is only about 5 or 6 nuts, and I know it's difficult to stop with just 1 or 2, but that's why. And they've done studies that have shown that if you put it in smaller packages, you're going to eat less.
Okay. There was a question before about, is there a meal, a heart-healthy meal that they can prepare in advance and actually freeze? Do you have any suggestions for that?
Oh, I think, yes, there's lots of heart healthy meals that you could prepare in advance and freeze. I love soups. You could make lots of healthy soups with your favorite type of broth or stock. I would recommend not using the packaged ones because it has a lot of salt in it. But one of the chefs at the conference I just went to taught us a tip that if you boil water and then you can shred your favorite protein, whether it's chicken or if you want it more with plant-based, you can throw your old carrot tops and carrots and leeks and everything else, and you boil this all up and then put a little olive oil in it. He actually prepared one with shredded chicken, and so he made this broth that you could freeze. And you decant out the chicken, and you could use that for another dish, like if you want to make a tortilla, again with beans and whole grains. You really want to put as much variety in it. So I like soups. You could throw in bulgur, you could throw in quinoa, you throw in your favorite vegetables, and spices are so important too, because a lot of the phytonutrients are in the spices. So instead of using salt, use garlic and onion and basil or cumin or cilantro. Those are ways that you're not putting in the salt, which is going to lower your blood pressure, and it's going to taste delicious.
Perfect. I was just going to ask you how to shake the salt habit and what other spices you would recommend for soups, because I think a lot of people, when they think soups, they think salt. It doesn't always have to contain a high amount of sodium to have that flavor.
Right. And in fact, here at the hospital, they've started making some newer heart healthier soups. And to make things creamy, they actually use, they mash up the avocado, so that will make it thicker and creamier instead of adding whole cream or half and half or something like that. So if you noticed, and I hope we're going to post this plate, which is from the Harvard School of Public Health, I mentioned an easy way of getting in your veggies. You could put it in soups, salads, smoothies, and stir fries.
Perfect. So what tips or suggestions can you offer our audience for eating heart healthy when they eat out?
Oh, okay. The things you have to worry about when you eat out. Beverage, because bread and butter. Those are the three things. So you could fill up on your cocktails and butter and bread, and you're going to already have eaten 800 calories before the meal comes. So look for things that are broiled instead of sauteed or steamed. You might want to share a plate with somebody, or else ask the waiter to actually divide your plate so that you could take half of it home and then just eat half of it there. Desserts, everyone loves to have desserts when you eat out, but the studies show that we get the most pleasure from them probably after our first and second bite. So share a dessert. Those are just some tips off the top of my head.
Okay. So another topic that came up was canned foods.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about canned foods, the pros, the cons. When do you recommend them, if at all?
What I would prefer is you get the most phytonutrients when things are fresh and local. So the season is going to be for our farmers markets, so explore your farmers markets and buy food then, and you could blanch vegetables and freeze them. That's what I've done. or buy frozen vegetables. Frozen vegetables are great because, again, they're just flash frozen. With cans, you have to watch out. It might have salt in it. Depending on the can might have endocrine disruptors called BHA in it, so that you might not want to buy canned items for that potential exposure, but I think mostly for the salt. So I would recommend go to the freezer section. You keep it in your freezer. That way, it's a nice, easy way to make a quick stir fry, when you get home from work.
Okay, we have a audience favorite question. This keeps coming up. Coconut oil. So there's a lot of debate on coconut oil. What are the benefits? What are the risks? The pros and cons. Can you break that down for us?
Coconut oil is one of the saturated fats. So it's solid at room temperature. When I was trained in my medical school training, any saturated fat was bad. And some of the more recent studies are showing that it's metabolized a little bit differently than, say, the saturated fat in bacon grease. But saturated fats are still bad for heart disease. A lot of the lay public, lay press is talking about it as being a cure for Alzheimer's disease. And even though that's very popular, I've not seen any studies that have shown that. But coconut oil is a great oil. You could use it on your skin. I recommend it for my patients that have psoriasis. Coconut oil, it has a high burn point. So that one is good for sauteing. It might make the food taste a little coconutty, but I wouldn't use it as my go-to oil. It depends on if you're using it for a particular reason. Again, and it's everything in moderation, the 80-20 rule. So if you're using coconut oil 20% of the time, I hope it's not with somebody who has heart disease. But again, as long as you're using the healthier fats the majority of the time.
Oh, great. Thank you. I think we have time for maybe one more question. So one of our members of the audience has a picky eater. And as we know, picky eaters, it's really hard to find foods that they will eat in general. So can you make some suggestions for them? What foods or what types of foods may be good choices and that are heart healthy?
I hope you're hearing that if it's a whole food product, it's heart healthy. Okay, meaning it's not been processed, you're not getting it at a fast food place. So what I would recommend is that get your kids involved in the kitchen, bring them shopping, see what kind of vegetables they pick out, have them chop them. Have a variety of vegetables available. Make sure their favorite vegetable is on the plate, but you might want to try a new one and then just say, hey, try it. If you don't like it, don't eat it, but you have some of their other favorites there. So it's a process, but I think if kids get involved in helping you shop and actually chopping up the food to eat, I think they're much more invested in trying to eat it. And what I was very disheartened at the conference that I just went to. Some of the predictions are that, I don't know if anyone in the audience has a child that's 2 years old, either their own or their grandchild. The statistics are predicting that by the time they hit 35, 60% of them are going to be overweight and they're not going to live longer than their parents. And so we need to stop this pediatric obesity epidemic. And I think it's going back to the things our grandparents used to do. I remember my grandma making stuff and I would sit there and watch and learn how to do it. And that's how you get interested in doing this. And kids model their parents. So, if you're saying no to that food, they're going to mimic you. And I think one of the easiest things that you can do is what's your favorite beverage, okay? If any of you are saying soda, that's not good. That's simple sugars. That's going to cause your blood sugar to spike and your insulin level to spike. Go to water. And in fact, Serena and I both have nice flavored waters. Mine has lemon. I think yours had lime. We put mint in it, the extra from the hummus. And, or drink tea or coffee. But ban fruit juices and ban the diet sodas and the regular sodas. Don't have it in your house. Don't let the kids drink it.
Well, thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us today for our first online chat with Dr. Galinat. We hope you found today's webinar to be informative and provided some helpful information to empower you to eat right for a healthy heart. Just please remember that the opinions expressed here from our medical expert is not a substitute for medical advice from your own physician. If you need a physician, please call 1-888-MD-RWJ-UH. For more information about cardiology services at Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital, Somerset, please visit our website at www.rwjbh.org/Somerset. This webinar has been recorded and will be posted next week on Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital Somerset's YouTube channel. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great day.
And eat healthy.